Following the month's non-farm disappointment, the Dow Jones and the rest of the US markets will be hoping for stronger signs of an economic recovery this week. Last Friday's non-farm reading was a shocker. Though in normal times the creation of 266,000 jobs would be very strong, in the current climate and compared to expectations of nearly 1 million additions, it's almost a disaster, especially since April's reading was revised from 916,000 to 770,000. And yet, from a market perspective, it was almost kind of perfect. The figure still saw jobs added, but not at a pace that may cause the Fed to reconsider a rethinking policy. In other words, worries over the Federal Reserve taping stimulus anytime soon have eased somewhat, as Jerome Powell is now a few months off, at least, from seeing a string of robust jobs reports. That thinking was arguably in evidence on Friday, which saw the Dow Jones spike to a fresh all-time high of 34,777, and that sets up the index to strike 35,000 at some point this week. If it is to do that, however, then the latest CPI and retail sales readings on Wednesday and Friday respectively will need to go the index's way. Rising inflation has been a hot topic in 2021, with fears of said inflationary pressures and what that would mean for interest rates causing some startling losses at points in the last few months. The most recent figure showed a steady climb as well, from 0.4% to 0.6%, going up faster than the 0.5% expected. This time out, however, analysts are expecting a sharp reduction from 0.6% back to 0.2%. The core figure, meanwhile, is set to hold at 0.3%. Such a reversal in the normal figure may be exactly the kind of thing the Dow Jones wants to hear en route to that aforementioned landmark 35,000 level. As for retail sales, they smashed it out of the park last month, surging from minus 2.7% to 9.8%, zooming past the forecast 5.8% while doing so. It was always going to be hard to match that performance this month. However, a drop to just 1.0% for the standard figure and 0.8% for the core reading may be a sharper decline than the markets will be happy with on Friday. Elsewhere, the job openings figure is expected to rise from 7.37 million to 7.5 million on Tuesday. And having just ducked under 500,000 last week, or 409,000 to be exact, the usual Thursday jobless claims reading is forecast to tick slightly higher, back up to 500,000. These estimates are notoriously off the mark, however, so movement around that number is to be expected. Finally, on Friday, industrial production is set to drop from 1.4% to 1.2%, but with consumer sentiment climbing from 88.3% to 90.2%. As mentioned, however, this week really is, even more so than retail sales, about those inflation figures on Wednesday. Again, like with the non-farm jobs report figures, these numbers are increasingly tricky to judge for investors because they're tied up with not only what they mean for the economic recovery in the US, but how they'll influence Federal Reserve policy. And those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand, i.e. the stronger the US recovery at the moment, whilst on a surface that's good for the markets, if it causes the Fed to start to reduce its stimulus, that's not good for the Dow Jones and the rest of the US markets at all, especially since the Dow Jones's recent record highs and the record highs across the US markets have been predicated on the markets being pumped for the stimulus, be it from the Federal Reserve or from Joe Biden's government. So anything that may cause a rethinking that is cause for concern. As mentioned, however, though, that inflation figure on Wednesday could be perfect for the Dow Jones because it would potentially put to bed fears that inflation is going to go way beyond that 2% mark, and backs up the Federal Reserve's claim that the recent spikes in inflation are transitory, and any upcoming spikes in inflation will be transitory too.